And a random thing is wrinkle release.
Er.
Okay. Anyways.
Hi guys, we are Dan and Michelle with Honeymoon Always. As you may know, we recently moved to Lisbon, Portugal from Austin, Texas, and we made kind of a quick decision to do it. And so we sold almost everything in our 1,600 square foot house in Austin, packed it all down to 6 suitcases and 2 carry-ons, and that's what we brought with us. And a lot of people are trying to decide when they move over, or even when they're coming to visit, like, what do I bring? And it can be difficult to try to siphon through all of the stuff that you have, especially because as Americans, we tend to accumulate a lot of things. We did send a few family heirlooms, some art, and some childhood memory things with my parents. But for the most part, everything we own now fits into our current apartment in Lisbon. So today we're talking all about all the things that we brought, all the things that we didn't need to bring, and what we wish we brought, and what we'll be buying when we go back home to the United States. If this is helpful, we hope you'll give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. We are hoping to get to 5,000 subscribers, and follow along with us on Instagram at Honeymoon Always.
So before we get into the details, overall, if you came here with one suitcase, you'd be able to get by and survive here in Portugal. They have everything you need. But in the US, we're used to shopping differently. You have easy access to a lot more products to make it easier for you to get by all the time. And living in Austin, like on our street, we would see Amazon trucks coming and going all the time. You have Target and big supermarkets everywhere where you can get a lot of products. And in general, whenever you need something, you're gonna be able to see 10 times more of that product to choose from, and you'll be able to get it quickly in the United States. Whereas here in Portugal, you're just gonna have less access to as much choice. Prices are different. And especially if you're trying to buy something exactly as you had in the United States with that same brand or the same exact product, it might be a little more expensive. So I would advise that you bring all your necessities, think about what you need for the next 4 to 6 months while you're transitioning, and then you can kind of get into finding new products here in Portugal during that time.
Yeah, the key is to not blast yourself with all new things once you get here. So if there's anything that's gonna make you feel more comfortable, bring those things with you. For example, I needed to go search for a new deodorant almost immediately after we got here, and finding a new deodorant that met the qualifications I was looking for was actually hard and frustrating. I did find it. They have plenty of deodorant here in Portugal, but do yourself a favor and give yourself a buffer on the things that you think are gonna make you feel more comfortable so you're not taking on so much at once when you get here. So you may be wondering, what clothes should I bring? Now, what we brought was about 1/3 of the clothes that we owned. We were really ready to start fresh, so we edited out a lot of the clothing that we had. A lot of it was stuff we weren't wearing. A lot of it was specific to living in Austin and having professional jobs where we were going into the office. We don't need those clothes anymore, and we were really ready for a new lifestyle. So we didn't bring a ton of clothes, but it did make up the majority of what was in our suitcases. What we have found most valuable here in Lisbon during the summer: shorts and t-shirts. I wish I had had more kind of like summer sundresses. That just wasn't something that I really had before. So I do wish I kind of had those, but not a big deal either way. This kind of falls most loudly into the segment of, if you need a lot of variety to choose from, you're gonna have a harder time shopping for clothes in Portugal. I'm someone who likes a lot more variety, and I'm more particular. So for me, I thought it would be easier to find clothes here than I had found it to be. It's not impossible. There are clothes. The ones that I like tend to be more expensive, and that's sad.
We also brought things for the winter, so we have several jackets, winter coats, and I'm excited to be wearing just joggers around the house again, because that's kind of my style. And I brought my Harry Potter robe, so I'm excited for it to be warm enough for me to use that again. But once again, these are just creature comforts that will make you feel at home.
Yeah, I think a big surprise for me was how infrequently I can wear my cute shoes. I edited out a lot of my like high heels or cute slides that have rhinestones and glitter and all these things. Because of the cobblestone streets here in Portugal, almost everywhere in Portugal, it's really hard to walk in anything other than tennis shoes. Flip-flops you can get away with, but anything where you're gonna be sliding from one side to the other in your foot, it's just not gonna be comfortable. So I really don't wear my cute shoes that often. So if you're on the fence about whether or not to bring those, I'd probably pass.
And I don't wear my flip-flops as often. In Austin, I always wear flip-flops probably 9 months out of the year, but here people don't wear them out as much. So I think it might have to do with cobblestones. But like if I go to the grocery store in flip-flops, I'm like the only one with flip-flops on, even like a hot summer day. So I tend to wear shoes if I'm gonna go inside somewhere.
So when we go back to the States, two things we're going to be picking up are another set of tennis shoes. I love my Allbirds, so I'll be getting another set of those. And I think I want to get some cute, more athletic sandals, like, what are they called? Teaks or some. I'll write it out and I won't be so embarrassed trying to remember what the name is, but there are some athletic sandals that I think would be great for the hot days when you need a lot more support, but you don't want to be in a tennis shoe. Next is electronics. Obviously, the outlets are different here and the voltage here is different. So we were very conscious when we were thinking about things to keep, not to bring things that had an American outlet. We do have outlet converters here, and that's actually worked out fine for us. So I have a couple of different curling irons that I brought, and I think my electric toothbrush, I think that's the extent of the electronics that I brought that plug in like that. And it's actually worked out great for me. So much so that I wish I had brought more of my curling irons instead of donating them, because I don't want to try out the curling irons here and figure out which ones work for my hair. I already knew which brand in the US worked for me, and because it's a low cost item, relatively speaking, I'm not super worried if something gets like shorted or blows out. It's not going to ruin my day to have to deal with that.
For me, as far as personal items go, I have my electric razor, and I've heard of other people having problems with bringing them from the US, but mine so far so good. It has not been a problem. One thing that we did leave behind was a KitchenAid mixer and a Blendtec blender, which are things that I love, but with the voltage change, I just didn't want to mess with that, and you can buy those here. They're just a little more expensive. So when you look at the risk of it having an electrical problem and the cost to move them over, I would recommend you just buy those here. As far as personal electronics, like your iPhones and laptops and things like that, definitely buy them before you come, because here they are a lot more expensive and it doesn't cost to ship them because you just have them in your personal luggage as you come over. Before we came, Michelle got a new iPhone. When we go back to the States, I'll get a new iPhone. We both got new MacBooks to work on before we came, and it's good to know that we don't have to worry about replacing them and spending an extra couple €100 in order to get the same thing that we could get in the United States. Another thing is camera equipment. Like when we go back to the United States, we'll consider buying new cameras when we get there.
For me, one thing that I wish that I had that I didn't bring with me are noise canceling headphones. We live in a particularly noisy area of Lisbon, Campo de Henrique, and the airplanes fly straight overhead. Plus we got all these like mystery apartment noises that are happening all the time. And I wish I had noise canceling headphones. It would also make editing these videos easier. The reason I won't be buying them here is because there's a smaller amount of variety and online reviews are just different here and I don't trust them quite as much. I'd rather feel great about my kind of higher ticket purchase doing it in the US, and also we'll be there for Christmas, so I'm hoping we'll get some Black Friday deals.
Next is medicine. So for over-the-counter medicine, when you get here, you may not be able to find what you were taking, or it might just be more expensive. So we take allergy medicine. It's over the counter in the US, and you can buy like a big thing of it at Costco for like $10. And here I bought a small thing that had 20 pills in it. It was €10. So that was quite a big difference. Other medicines they may not have here, like Benadryl, for example. So bring what you need to last you a little while, because once again, those are cheap and they're small. So why not just bring enough with you to be able to make it last for a little while?
For prescription medication, you're definitely going to want to bring enough to at least buy yourself some time, so you're not rushed to finding a new doctor or an alternative to medication if it's not something that they offer here. For us, we've been here about 4 months now, and we're just getting to the point of reaching out to doctors and figuring out the medical system. I ended up bringing, I think, almost a year's supply of the medication that I was on. I just paid for it out of pocket in the US to buy myself that time, and I'm so glad that I did, because now I don't feel nearly as panicked to kind of get settled in our new home. Next is vitamins. Now, vitamins just aren't really a thing here. They do exist in some of the pharmacies, but it's not quite the same. So some of them kind of exist and some of them don't.
And they're all more expensive.
They are all more expensive. So I brought enough to last me about 3 months, and now I'm out. And that's that. So it's just one of those things that I think I'm just gonna have to get used to or find alternatives for. Cosmetics is another thing that falls solidly in the bring as much as you need to feel comfortable bucket. Obviously they have face wash and sunscreen and, makeup here, but a lot of it is a lot more expensive. The sunscreen actually is what really surprised us when we got here about how much more expensive it is.
Next is stuff for your hobbies. So I like to play tennis. Michelle plays sometimes with me as well. So we brought our tennis rackets. And Michelle likes to paint, so she brought some paint supplies. And once again, we recommend that you bring enough to get you going. And then once you're here, they have everything you need. So tennis balls, I can find them. If I need a new tennis racket or a new tennis bag, I can find it. Michelle, when she needs new paint supplies, she can find it. But it's nice that she kind of has a little bit to get going with. And that's kind of what we would recommend for you. Now we're going to talk about your home stuff. And this is where things vary person to person. It really depends on you and how important these things are. It also depends if you plan on making trips back to the US to get more stuff. So if you want to bring it in more than one trip. But for these, we're talking about like pots and pans, your knives, your bedding. And for this, I would ask you, like, what do you think you need to feel comfortable? So with us, we brought some bedding with us, and the way that worked out is like on our last day, we just were stuffing our suitcases to see what else would fit. And lucky enough, we fit one of Michelle's blankets in there. And then we brought our pillows on the plane with us, so that didn't take up any extra space. And so it's just nice to have a couple things that make you feel at home.
I love that the blanket that I have is perfect. I'm a hot sleeper, and so I didn't have to worry about if I was going to have a sleep issue when I got here. I loved having my own bedding. I also brought a couple of silk pillowcases because that's something that I like. So definitely recommend that if you have space for it. And we've also heard other people recommend if you have kids, that can be a nice way to help them feel more comfortable and at home too. So what I'm saying is I'm an adult child and I needed my own bedding.
So kitchenware like pots, pans, and knives, we didn't bring any. And that worked for us because we moved into a furnished apartment. But I do miss like having a good sharp knife and having like nice pots and pans because I have a background in cooking. So I kind of wish I had a little bit more of that, but we're in a furnished apartment, so it doesn't really make sense for me to have those at this time. So my recommendation would be to bring them if they're really important to you, or ideally is maybe you can have a storage unit and bring them on a second trip or something like that. So that way you're not paying for shipping for those types of things, but you can have them. Knives would have been a good thing to bring because they're pretty small. And I know a lot of people that cook a lot care a lot about what knives they're using. Also with kitchen things, like you can find them here. Like we have a Le Creuset in the local mall. I haven't looked for knives, but I know they're here. So you're gonna be able to find them. It's just with everything else, you have to find what you want, and it might just take a little bit more time and they might be a little more expensive. For furniture, I don't think you should bring it. No, some people pack a whole container and bring their whole home over here with all their furniture, and it just doesn't really make sense to me because you can just buy it here. There are plenty of furniture stores here. It's really just a one-time purchase that you have to look for. So go find the furniture that you need. Mm-hmm. Our apartment came furnished, but we know people that have furnished a whole apartment pretty quickly and easily. So it's not really that big of a deal. And when you factor in the cost of shipping, it really doesn't make sense to bring your furniture along with you. The only time I think it would make sense to bring furniture over is if you're really particular about something. An office chair comes to mind because if you're going to work from home, you're going to be spending a lot of time in that chair. So if you're going to bring like a pallet, that might be something to include among your things.
So a lot of people want to know if they should bring their car over here. And again, our answer is probably not. We say this because cars, when they get here, have to be like retrofitted. There are certain laws about things that I don't know about. And then there's a lot of certifications that they have to get. So it seems like a hassle and an additional cost, plus the cost of getting the car over here. So unless it's some sort of like vintage, beautiful, fancy car, it seems like you might just be better off buying a car here. We know a couple of people who've bought cars with absolutely no issues for a decent price. Both sets of couples had glowing reviews about their experience. So I don't see that being a problem if you want to have a car here. The other thing is cars are just smaller here. So if you have a giant car, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Like, sorry about it. America has huge cars and they have small cars here. So you're going to have a hard time parking and, even entering certain areas, I think, with a larger car. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
For pets, same thing. Bring enough stuff to help them in the transition. So maybe some food to transition into whatever you find here. But there are pet stores. There are plenty of dogs that we see all the time. So you shouldn't have a problem there. All right, so we're here. We've been here for 4 months. And now we're going to go back to the U.S. for Christmas in about a month or two from now. Yeah. So we're already starting our list of things that we're going to make sure that we pick up. And while this list is probably going to grow, we wanted to share with you some things we're missing that we'll be picking up.
And of course, some of these things you can't get here and some of these things you can. They're just more expensive and we're lazy and cheap.
So for food, we have some like things that are just personal to us. I don't know if this is helpful at all, but we like Trader Joe's everything but the bagel seasoning mix. And then definitely picking up some more chocolate chips. They have plenty of chocolate here and you can chop it up, but chocolate chips just make it easier.
Yeah.
And then my favorite like candy is peanut butter M&Ms. So we're picking up some bags of that.
They also don't seem to sell real vanilla here. So we're going to go get one of those like monster Costco size vanilla.
Yeah, I saw it here once and it was like this big for 11 euros.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was real? It wasn't the fake stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't tell me.
Yeah. So it's here, but it's just very expensive. One thing we could do is they do sell like the vanilla beans at a lot of grocery stores. Maybe we could make our own vanilla.
Could make our own, probably. Some other things we're getting are motion sickness bracelets. So I don't know if you even know what those are. I'll try to put a picture up here. But we get motion sickness all the time, especially when we're in the back of like Ubers or on the train. And since we don't have our own car, we're not really in control of where we sit and how windy the road is. So that's something we're going to be picking up. Supposedly it exists here in Portugal, but we've just had a really hard time finding them. So I have a list of some clothing things and some cosmetic things that I want to pick up. Things that I'm hoping, again, will be on sale for Christmas. That will just be less expensive to pick up in the US than trying to buy them here. I will say I tried to replace my Anastasia brow pencil the other day and it was like 10 euro more expensive here than it is in the US and I'm just not down for that. So.
Yeah. And a random thing is wrinkle release.
Okay.
And a random thing is wrinkle releaser.
Basically, we have a lot of clothing that gets kind of like wrinkly and we want to release the wrinkles, but they don't really sell that here.
Yeah, and I don't want to iron.
So we would love to hear what's on your list. If you've already moved abroad, we'd love to hear what you're missing from the US and what you're going to be picking up when you go home. One thing I did hear from a friend is that she really wishes that they sold Crest white strips here.
I've heard that.
So I happened to bring some with me, but I'm actually thinking about picking some up for her because she said she missed them. So bring your Crest white strips if you want them.
So as we said, we brought 3 check bags each. And the reason we decided that was because TAP Airlines had an economy rate that allowed you to get 3 check bags for that price. And they no longer have that. But we saw the 3 bags and we thought, that would work for us. So we both did 3 bags and a carry-on. You really need to check your airlines and see what the luggage allowance is because it can make a huge difference in the cost. And that might help you decide exactly how much you want to bring. If you aren't planning on bringing things as luggage, the next option is getting a pallet, which I think run a couple $1,000s. And then the next size up is to get an actual container, which I just can't imagine doing, but people do it and it's thousands of dollars and it really depends on a couple things. I know people get hit with fines based on how long the containers sit in customs, which isn't your fault. And I know some get huge taxes on top of that, on customs. So I just can't imagine doing that, but to each their own. I mean, if you don't mind spending all that money, you can bring it over here. I just think for most things you can replace it and I wouldn't deal with that.
I think a key difference for us is that we are fairly newly married. We were in our first house. And so we didn't have a lot of things that were so precious that we felt like we had to bring it over. But a lot of people really will feel more comfortable having the things from home over here. And it will be a hassle to get them in some cases. So I can understand doing it, but financially it didn't make sense for us.
Well said.
Thank you. A question we get a lot is how did we actually go about getting rid of all of our stuff in our house? Like I said, it was a 1,600 square foot house and we are now in how big is our apartment?
I don't know.
Okay, small apartment. We're in a small apartment now. I mean, it was 6 suitcases, right? So first I just want to talk about the approach, right? Like getting rid of your stuff, especially if you're a burgeoning hoarder like myself, it can be really difficult to part with things that you care a lot about and have a lot of emotional stake in. So for me, the first thing was going through our closets and looking at the things we've literally never touched since we moved into our house. We've been in the house for about 5 years and there were things in the closet we literally had never touched and pulled out. So those felt like easy breezy, let's get rid of those. And then it was just kind of like, okay, one layer deeper. And we didn't have a ton of time. And I will be honest, it was a painful experience. It was very difficult. And there were boxes of things that I really didn't want to have to look at. I didn't want to go through and it was painful. But I also knew that on the other side of that, I was not going to be having this literal physical baggage that was going to be holding me down to where we were at. And part of the reason we moved here was to start fresh and to have a new chance at life, I guess, in a sense. And so even though it was painful, keeping that eye on the prize on the other end was really valuable. And we were able to do it in like a month.
Yeah, basically we just started with the bigger items and the more expensive items that we were ready to get rid of, and went down from there, kept keeping the main pieces of furniture that we needed to live on until the last minute and getting rid of those.
Yeah.
So it was great that we had a deadline, because it was like at some point we just had to get rid of it all and donate what was left.
That deadline really helped with the urgency of getting rid of things.
Definitely. But yeah, it was not fun. I do not envy anyone who has to go through it like we did. But
nor would I like suggest it, but it also was super rewarding and valuable.
It feels new because it feels great that we don't have all this stuff weighing us down, but it also changed us, because when we go to the store now and we see little things that in the US we would just pick up and throw in the cart, now we think about every item. So it's interesting, because I did research into like minimalism before this and always thought, that's interesting. And now we were kind of like forced into minimalism.
Yeah, I don't like that as a sentiment, because I don't feel like I'm emotionally minimalist, but practically we are.
Yeah, and so now whenever I look at something, I really think about, do I want this or not?
And how long is it going to stay in my apartment? And how would I, like, what is the end life of this thing? Am I going to hold on to it forever, or like, how would I donate it? And frankly, I don't know how to donate things here yet. So it's not really an option.
Yeah. And just our Amazon orders have gone down. They probably got on 90%.
Yeah.
So really great things, even if sometimes there's some hard parts about it.
Yeah. As far as how to get rid of your things, we felt really lucky that Facebook Marketplace was a really strong avenue for us in Austin, but I think it is in the United States in general. So our keys to that are taking bright, well-staged photography, putting very detailed information. So I would go back and look at like my online receipt or the online information for that item to make sure that I included everything that a marketer would include in that item, noting anything that was wrong with it, so being very upfront about it, and then also surveying what other people were selling similar items for, to making sure that it was comparably priced and priced to where I felt good about selling it. We actually made a lot of money on Facebook Marketplace. We got rid of a lot of things, and that was a really good avenue for us. We also had a little yard sale, like a garage sale for like our tools and our cooking supplies and some of the things that were just like bulk little things that were going to be helpful to many people, so that we felt like it was just easier to have someone come and pick up 10 things than trying to buy one thing from us on the internet. We sold a couple things on eBay. And then my parents happened to be moving at the same time. So we actually had a combined estate sale, moving sale. And if you call it a moving sale, people will know that this is high quality, high value things, that it's not just a yard sale, which sometimes has the connotation of being junk. So that's how we got rid of the majority of our stuff. And then we did several loads to, Goodwill. So that's how we sold all of our stuff and what we chose to bring with us to Portugal. And we've also included a list of things that we are missing and are going to go back to. If you have any questions about anything in this process, let us know. If there's anything you're missing, we'd love to hear about it. We're really curious to see if there's something else we should be picking up when we go back home for Christmas. So leave us a comment below. Follow along with us on Instagram @HoneymoonAlways, and we will talk to you later.